Hey guys, it's Orlando. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting from the Lower Eastside here in the city, powered by the Eastside Community Network and sponsored by none other than the Ford Foundation. We're now a content partner to the new BridgeDetroit.com. This is indeed a special episode of Authentically Detroit as we will be broadcasting the Lower Eastside Action Plan virtual stakeholder advisory group that myself and Donna co-hosted on Tuesday, February 2nd, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., featuring Council President Pro-Tem Mary Sheffield and Denzel McCampbell from the Detroit Charter Commission. We are talking about the City Charter Commission and specifically the Detroiters' Bill of Rights. Listen in on this community-wide meeting to discuss the impacts of the charter revisions on the community and learn about the Detroiters' Bill of Rights.
So the next thing we want to talk about is Authentically Detroit. We are in our second year, I guess that means we're going into our third year with Authentically Detroit. Orlando and I formed this in 2019, and since then we have recorded 63 episodes. And Orlando, I want to say, I don't know if the number is 12,000 downloads the last I heard. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, 12,000 downloads, which is really amazing. Probably the most exciting thing was when somebody showed me a text message from somebody in France who said, hey, you were called out on this show. So some people at least are listening even overseas. So what we try to do is we try to put voices of this community out. And because of this important topic, we wanted to center tonight's episode on these topics and your voices. So this is going to be an Authentically Detroit podcast. Orlando, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I'm just excited to be back with ECN and LEAP to help facilitate this conversation with Council President Pro-Tem Mary Sheffield and Denzel McCampbell. It's my old stomping grounds, and I'm so excited to see everybody. We're excited.
All right, so we are joined by Honorable Mary Sheffield, who is City Council Pro-Tem. President Pro-Tem, is that what it is? President Pro-Tem, I'm sorry. Mary Sheffield is a native Detroiter, and at the age of 26, she became the youngest person ever elected to the Detroit City Council. And along with being elected as the President Pro-Tem, Mary Sheffield was also appointed Chair of Neighborhood and Community Services. She currently sits on the Budget, Finance, and Audit Standing Committees. Mary, welcome.
Well, good evening, everyone. As you can see, I am not Mary Sheffield. I am Barry Blackwell. Unfortunately, Council President Pro-Tem Sheffield has been tied up in another Zoom call, and she cannot get away. And so I apologize for that. If she does get the time, she said she would certainly join in. But in the meantime, I will be standing in her shoes, and I hope that that is okay with everyone.
Yes. Well, thank you and welcome.
Absolutely.
So Barry, this year, you and your office and Councilwoman Raquel Castaneda-Lopez office began a process last year of pulling together a Detroiters' Bill of Rights. Can you explain what happened here and describe the process for us?
Absolutely. So first, I want to give a quick shout out to Council Member Raquel Castaneda-Lopez and her team, because they really carried the mantle on this. And so we want to just make sure that we recognize the hard work that her and her staff have put the time and the effort that they put into this very important document. But in a quick nutshell, the Detroit Bill of Rights is essentially what it sounds like. It's a package of rights. Of them to be exact. And these are rights that we feel, and I shouldn't say we, because the rights weren't, this document wasn't created just our voices. It was a collection of community members and subject matter experts and people who are on the ground every day doing the work. We felt that it was necessary to make sure that we had everyone's voice at the table in figuring out what's important as we move Detroit to the next level, right? So there are 8 different components to it. And each component we feel addresses some type of pressing issue that we're dealing with in the city of Detroit. And so those 8 things are right to water and sanitation, especially right now during this pandemic. We know that how important it is to have fresh water, or to have water just to be able to wash our hands or brush our teeth, or the basic necessities. And so that particular piece of legislation, that particular piece of the Bill of Rights, we feel is really important right now. It also calls for a right to environmental health. I tell people all the time, I've recently become a runner. I run like 3 or 4 times a week at 3 miles each, 3 or 4 miles apiece. And I can't tell you how important it is when you step outside. I'm now realizing, because I'm not in my car as much, how poor the air quality is in certain parts of the city. And so these are things that we need to address. And so this particular action calls for the establishment of an environmental justice office, so that we can look at things that are impacting our air quality and our environmental health. It also looks at right to safety. That component looks at a number of things. Would it be better if I shared a PowerPoint, or do I have time?
Oh, absolutely, please do.
Okay, maybe that will be.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, hold on one sec. Let me share my screen.
All right.
See my screen?
Okay, there you go.
Right. So these are the 8 rights, and we'll just scroll on. Right to water and sanitation, again, we realize how important it is, but something I really want to highlight is that it stops the termination of residential water to customers who are unable to pay, which we think is really, really important. Our office in particular has been pushing for a water affordability plan for like the past 5-6 years. And so this is something that we realize is absolutely necessary, particularly during this pandemic that we're in, right? Right to environmental health. Again, we talked about this particular piece establishes an environmental justice commission. It also establishes the Office of Justice and Sustainability, and it also establishes a public health fund. Again, and just my personal testimony, I'm getting to realize how important it is. Before this pandemic, we spent so much time in our cars, and we spent so much time inside buildings and work. And so now that I spend more time outside, I get it. It clicks. And so this is something that I think, particularly in communities of color, we don't talk about enough. And so this is something that I'm really glad that we're able to uplift. Right to safety, it's a lot in this. And so of course, everyone deserves to be safe, but I do want to point out 2 quick things, and I can make sure this PowerPoint gets to you if you want, but I do want to point out 2 quick things, because it's important to know that this group was formed as a result of a lot of the unrest in the Black Lives Matter protests that we saw take place this past summer. And so 2 quick bullet points is that we realize that our police department has a lot of military weapons, or a lot of things that may not be necessary in policing everyday citizens. And so this calls for an end to those things. The department would not be allowed to stockpile chemical weapons or use of chemical weapons. The department will not be able to stockpile other military style weapons in the city of Detroit. And so those are 2 things that I think are important, especially now when we've seen and what we have seen over the course of the summer. So that is something that we think is critically important as well. Are there any questions so far, or do I have?
You know, you have time to go through and explain what these are. I don't want you to gloss through, because these are all really significant. When we talk about the right to public safety right now, for example, there are people who interpret that in many different ways. So I think it's important to explain what is meant in this document by the right to safety.
Absolutely. So, I mean, when you talk about right to safety, like I said, it's a number of components, right? But what we're asking for is that we change the way we look at how we police in the city of Detroit. And so part of that is looking at other ways in which we respond to 911 calls. We were on a working group call last night And we had a really good presentation that outlined the police department's budget, and we compared other cities and looked at other practices and what they do. And so one of the things that my personal takeaway from that was we have to do more with what we have, and we have a very archaic way of looking at how we police, particularly in Detroit. The young lady who did the presentation mentioned that we have a budget policy that was created in 1994 at a time when the federal government had a very heavy-handed approach to policing. And so we're trying to find ways to create avenues in which the city can find other departments to respond to 911 calls, or we can find other. So instead of sending a patrol car to someone who's having a crisis mentally, maybe we send someone from a mental service agency to support that person. And so it really is looking at a different approach to safety and a different approach to policing.
But in these rights, in the rights, the Bill of Rights that was passed, we don't really spend, I know the mayor is working on things and has promoted things along those lines and is looking at models in other cities. Some of the things we have here are to ensure every Detroit resident is entitled to move through the city free from government surveillance.
Yes.
So we have a bunch of surveillance equipment that we have installed in our community right now, right? And as such, my understanding is that this surveillance equipment has many false positives, and is most likely to be false. When people of color, especially Black people, the darker you are, the more likely there are to be errors, and yet we're using this, which can lead to false arrest. And one of the things I learned about a false arrest, even if you're arrested anytime, they don't just take your fingerprints, they take your DNA. And so you become entered into a DNA system and a fingerprinting system. And, you know, when we don't have so many, when we don't have great criminal defense, I know it's getting better, some people get arrested and don't have the ability to defend themselves. Now, you saw the one man who was able to prove he was falsely arrested, and the police apologized, dropped all charges. But for every one of those, there's a possibility of a young, indigent Black man walking the street, getting arrested and not having the wherewithal to, first of all, prove it wasn't him, and secondly, do all and defend himself. So I think there are those concerns there. And I want to throw something out for you, Barry, because the other thing I've heard is that there are some residents who really like the idea of surveillance and are opposed to removing surveillance. So how do we respond to that when we talk about adding this to a Bill of Rights?
Absolutely. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I live in a high-rise building in Detroit that is just announced that they're going to be installing Project Greenlight. And so I'm ready to pack my bags up and move, but that's just my personal take on it, right? So everybody has a different opinion, but our office has been working on legislation. And I wish my colleague Paris Blessman was on, because she could give a better deep dive in that legislation, because she's spearheading it. But you're right, Donna, we're seeing oversaturation of surveillance technology in the city of Detroit. And what we need to do, we have to reconcile with, one, the fact that you are correct, that African Americans are oftentimes misidentified at a higher rate than any other race when it comes to facial recognition. And so we have not yet reconciled with that, in my opinion, as a city. And so our legislation, what we're looking to do, and it's called a CEOX legislation. And please forgive me, I don't have the exact name for it, but I will get it before we leave. But what it does is it provides oversight. So, and in the example that I use, they're trying to place surveillance equipment in my building. If our ordinance were in place, then my complex would be required to do some type of community engagement prior to rolling it out, right? They have to engage with residents. And that's what our legislation is asking. It's asking that these items, before they can be installed, before we can procure this technology, that we have to have some type of community engagement. And there's such a heavy-handed approach when it comes to policing in the city, and it hasn't yielded the type of results that we're told it's going to yield. So it's like we've dumped $30 million, if I'm not mistaken, in surveillance technology in the city of Detroit. Yet our crime rates are still high as a nation. Do you get what I'm saying? So it hasn't equaled, it hasn't made sense yet. But you are right. There are a lot of people who do believe that technology is something it's a tool, but it has to be used in the correct way. And what we're saying is not only should it be used in the correct way, but there needs to be community engagement in that conversation. And right now there is none. And so that's our issue. Our issue is that there needs to be. And so in this particular piece of the Bill of Rights, I'm trying to make sure I give you the right, you have to apologize. I was not expecting to do this presentation, so you have to bear with me. But council shall pass an ordinance to establish community oversight and rules and regulations on any surveillance program developed. And that is something that we think is really, really critical moving forward. We're not saying that technology is a bad thing. We're saying it has to be used in a way in which people are engaged.
Right, and protected.
Protected, absolutely.
So the next one has to do with not assisting ICE, right? That the city employees will not assist in immigration enforcement because the way immigration enforcement has been carried out in our communities, especially in Southwest Detroit, has violated people's rights.
Absolutely.
If you look like an immigrant, you get treated like an immigrant, right? And what does an immigrant look like? And you can have to prove that you are part of the United States. People have had their homes raided, their children arrested, and kids are walking around with citizenship papers, 8-year-olds, to avoid deportation proceedings. And so this idea is that our city government will not assist in that because people who live here from other places have the right to be safe inside of Detroit. That's the point of that, right?
Absolutely. And I think what it also does, to be honest, so I grew up on the west side of the city. And I think everybody.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Denzel, but can you just scroll to the right to live free from discrimination slide so people can take a look at it as you describe it?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So I grew up on the west side of the city, so I have a different experience than someone who lives in Southwest. And so I think that part of these types of conversations, it connects the dot. It makes the stories real. I've never had to carry papers or worry about those types of things. I've never thought about that as an issue until I started working on this particular project. And so these are not only is it important that we actually implement these things, but I think it's important that we tell these stories so that people begin to understand why it's important that we have these types of policies in place.
Yeah, I just want to point out that was a public safety policy, not a free of discrimination policy. That was the one. So we haven't gotten, I don't think, to the disability.
No. Yeah. But I think was there anything else on the public safety that you wanted me to point out, Donna?
The community oversight over the Board of Police Commissioners regarding eligibility duties, giving them additional power, increased transparency and community oversight, as well as engagement, and establishing a new auditor monitor position to analyze data and trends is the last one.
Absolutely. So we realize that the Board of Police Commissioner plays a really important role in setting the policies for the police department, but also protecting the citizens from improper interactions with police officers. And so we're looking at ways that we can strengthen, and I don't have the language in front of me, I apologize. Maybe Commissioner Denzel may have it, but we're just looking at ways that we can increase the transparency within the Board of Police Commissioners, and giving them more authority so that they can act on more issues. But the Board of Police Commissioners we're one of the few cities in America that even has a Board of Police Commissioners, right? And our office actually sponsored the resolution to reenact their powers about 4 or 5 years ago. So this is something that we certainly want to continue to champion.
All right, so let's move, get through these. Thank you for sharing those. I think the Board of the right to live, the right to public safety is a right that several people are commenting on. So we want to get to some of these questions and comments, but the right to live free from discrimination.
Yes. So the right to live free from discrimination is basically saying that every Detroiter with a disability is entitled to the same rights and freedoms as non-disabled people in the city. And so this particular piece of this particular language would establish the Office of Disability Affairs and also establish an Office of Disability Justice Commission. And it also adopts a language access standard. This is something that, again, I have to take my hat off to Councilmember Raquel Castaneda Lopez's office for highlighting these issues. I don't think we've ever had someone on council that champions so much for, like, for example, language access. And so we want to make sure that one of the things I've realized is we put a lot of information out in the city. But we until now, or until it's always been one language. I think it's important that we provide as much access as we can to individuals who are not disabled. And I think this pretty much speaks for itself.
Know that there have been concerns by people in the disabled community about the difficulty of getting to some city meetings based on their disabilities. And there's been a big outcry to say, wait a minute, you've got to be more accommodating to us. Absolutely. So I'm really happy. And Baxter Jones has been a hero in that regard, really raising these issues. Next slide. Absolutely.
And one of the things that we've done recently is we've included closed caption on all of our Zoom meetings, which I think is really, really dope. This is kind of speaks to the office of the immigration issue that we talked about. And so this is the right to live free from discrimination and protection in support of Detroit's immigrants community. Again, this is something that Councilwoman Raquel Castaneda Lopez has been very vocal about. And so again, I take my hat off to her, but this would establish an Office of Immigrant Affairs. It also establishes an Immigrants' Rights Commission. And again, we talk about the adoption of the language access standards and protection for immigrants' rights. I think these are, again, things that will help move our city forward and protect individuals. No child at 8 years old should be feared. That is, you're going to school. Why should you have to be feared to be deported? It's just something that I think is absolutely egregious. And these are the types of things that will help protect those families. A mother going to the grocery store to get food for her children, or a son taking their mother to the doctor for medical treatment should not be stopped in fear of having to be deported for taking care of themselves. And so these are the types of things that we feel will help address those issues. Are there anything you want me to deep dive on that, Donna?
Let's keep going. No, I think we deep dived a lot on some of that. I just want to make sure people understand a lot of this before we get into some of the dialogue.
Absolutely. Right to recreation. This is, again, every Detroit resident is entitled to access to parks, recreational opportunities, and urban green spaces to protect and enhance their health and well-being. Before this call, I was 30 pounds heavier at the beginning of this pandemic, and I'm grateful because I have a park that I can run, but everyone doesn't have that, right? And so we want to make sure that we establish green spaces and networks that people can easily come to and use. And so that's just simply not the case in every council district. It includes ensuring that parks are part of the city master plan in more vulnerable populated areas. So we give a lot of attention to certain areas in the city that are densely populated. And so this calls for not just looking at those densely populated areas, but going into some of the more impoverished areas in the city that actually need these types of services and support, and making sure that they have them.
Can I ask a question? Absolutely. Would this right protect communities where urban green spaces are taking away? For example, the Conner Creek Greenway was given away to Fiat Chrysler and not replaced with another greenway, and it feels as though the city should not be able to do that without some type of without compensation of an equivalent resource. So I'm wondering if we're looking at developers being able to go and take things away. There's in our community several places where people have been using land for green purposes, and the question is always a fear that it's going to go away.
I don't know of any language in this that speaks to that. I do think that is something that should take, in my personal opinion, that should take place during the CBO process. You're on mute, Donna. I'm sorry.
The whole point of this is to give me rights, not to put me through a CBO and say you get a right if the CBO people demand it. I think that if I have a right, you can't take something from me as a right. And I think we need to figure out, and I know we're going to get to this and get into the details, but if we have a right to things, then there should be a right to keep them and not just to have them.
No, I definitely understand what you're saying. And I agree with you. And that's something that we can look at. And I don't know if it's too late to add additional language to the recommendations that we send to the Charter Commission, but I'm sure that Commissioner Denzel can opine on that.
All right.
Okay. Right to access and mobility. Every Detroit resident, regardless of the zip code, has the right to safe, accessible, and affordable public transportation options, whether walking, biking, driving, road, ride share, or using public transit that enables free and fair movement throughout the city. And so what this calls for is a low income fare plan, which is something that we've been working for a while. It strengthens the powers of the DDOT Advisory Commission. What else does it? It does something else. But one of the big part and the big component of this, in my opinion, is it provides it creates a true, authentic affordability plan for riders. Everyone just simply cannot afford it. We may not think of it like that, but everyone should be able to get to their doctor's appointments. They should be able to get to work. They should be able to get to school without having the burden of having to pay for if they can't. And so this is something that our office has been working with the department, with DDOT for some time. And so we hope that this is something that does pass through the Charter Commission. Right to housing. So every Detroit resident is entitled to affordable, safe, and accessible housing. And so one of the things that we're looking at with this is it ensures this right as affordability should be based on the city's AMI. So one of the biggest issues that we constantly face with AMI is that we're constantly, and AMI is area median income. And so what we're constantly doing is when we're looking at Detroit's AMI, they dump us in with surrounding suburbs that has a much higher AMI than Detroit does. And I don't have the figures offhand, but I think Detroit's AMI is somewhere around maybe 20, 24, maybe 30,000. I think maybe less than that. But when they lump in the rest of the region, then the AMI is much higher. And that's just not true reflection of Detroiters. And so then it leaves out a big chunk of our community, and they don't have access to clean, safe, affordable housing. And so this particular right will make that a law in the city of Detroit. It would be in our Constitution. It also establishes Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That is something, an Affordable Housing Trust Fund, so we currently have some type of Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but this would put it in our charter. And the Affordable Housing Trust Fund basically helps us support additional housing funds throughout the city. So this is something that we feel is, again, an absolute necessity as we move forward, as we move our city forward. Questions? Anything you want
to point out that an Affordable Housing Trust Fund without a source of funds is meaningless. And I do want to, we're going to get to let Denzel also present, but I do want to point out that every person, every human being has a right to affordable housing, whether or not they fit within the area median income of the city or the county or the state or the region or whatever. If you are poor and you don't have any income, you have a right to housing. If you are, and it should not be one of these things where we decide that certain people deserve housing. And that means that affordable housing construction and preservation plan is super important. Other cities have a housing plan to say, this is how we this is how we support, this is our vision for housing everybody. Minneapolis has a plan. Atlanta has a plan. Their plans may not be good, they may not be realistic, but they have one. I've repeatedly asked the city to produce a plan, talked about it, heard other people talk about it, and we keep hearing, well, the city doesn't want to make promises they can't keep. So since you don't plan on keeping promises to poor people around housing, we don't. And, you know, regarding the Housing Trust Fund, there's 20% of proceeds from the sale of Detroit-owned property to fund low and extremely low-income housing, but there are other ways to do it. And so I think that if we look around the nation and see how sometimes you get developers who have to pay into a fund when they develop high-end property for that, so that they're not allowed to develop high-end property without contributing to affordable housing. There's many, many ways of looking at it, and I'm hoping that in this process we think it through. So the last one is the right to fulfillment of basic needs.
Yes. Everyone has a right to a standard of living. That's basically what this is saying. Adequate for the health and well-being of themselves and of their family, including food, utility, water, sanitation, clothing, affordable and accessible housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to care in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond their control. So basically what this is saying is that you have a right to live in the city and not be in poverty, right? You have a right not to, everyone should be on equal footing. There's so many disparities and things that happen in the city of Detroit, and it's so unfortunate that it's just not equal. And so what this inherently does, this entire piece of legislation, of this entire document does, is it says that everyone in the city is equal, and that we should all be treated as such, and that we should all have access to very basic things that we sometimes take for granted. That is essentially the end. Unless there are any questions for me, I want
to thank you. We're going to come to the questions from the group at the end. I want to thank you for filling in on short notice, and please let the councilwoman know that we do expect her to come back to our community and to address our community, because people have the right to hear from their district council people, just like they have the right to hear from their staff. And so I appreciate you being here. But I know that a lot of people are really hoping to be able to ask that question of our elected official. And so we look forward to finding out when she's able to join us so that we can have that conversation. This being election year and all. The next we have Denzel McCampbell. And thank you, Denzel, for joining us and for sharing with us information about the Charter Revision Commission, as well as anything that you may want to share about the Detroiters Bill of Rights, which you've also been involved in. And Denzel is a Detroiter born and raised on the east side of Detroit. He serves as a commissioner for the Detroit Charter Commission, as well as communications director for Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Michigan 13. He's also previously worked as deputy communications director for Engage Michigan and the National Public Policy chair for the Black Youth Project 100. So I want to welcome Denzel to the event this evening.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you all for the invitation to be here. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Barry, for the presentation on the Detroit Bill of Rights. I just want to, Donna gave a preview or a good synopsis of the process of the Detroit Charter Review Commission in this formation. Back in 2018, folks may remember in August, there was not much information put forth, and you know, there was actually an effort by many community groups to not reopen the charter for revision because of that fact that a lot of community education did not happen. But the measure passed in August of 2018. I believe it passed it was 51% to 49. So it's very close. But with that, it established a 3-year process for the Detroit Charter to be revised. And the last time we revised our charter was in 2012. If folks remember that, that also brought forth the provision on going to the ballot on council by districts and a lot of other things that we now have in city government. But what that Charter Revision Commission said that usually the charter is not, the question does not appear for 16 to 20 years. But their charter review commission, since they were putting so many changes in the charter, they wanted to give residents the opportunity to come back and make sure that those changes were working well. So fast forward to folks had to run for a charter commission and be seated. And, you know, it's a 3-year process. So we have from the date of the August 2018 election to August of 2021 to put forth a revised charter on the ballot for residents to vote yes or no on the revised charter. And what we've been doing through this process, we had a several months of a process to have anyone, any resident, any community group, any city department, elected official submit revisions to the charter. And we had over 300 of those proposals submitted. And, you know, we always talk about participatory governance and having folks involved and saying, how do they want their government to operate? How do they want their government to look and function on their behalf? And I really think we need to have more of that in the city, because what we saw in this process of having proposal for folks is it challenged the commissioners to think about what's not working, how can we fix it, and how can we involve the most people into that. And we got those proposals in, and we went through a subcommittee process, and I chair the Public Agencies and Safety Subcommittee on the commission, and which has quite a few of the Charter Bill of Rights that came before us. And we just talked through it. We had residents come forth and talk about those provisions. What do they want to see? What's the rationale? Because, you know, folks have different experiences, and we want to hear from folks on how are these issues impacting them, and how can we come up with a solution that is well-rounded and helps folks get ahead. So we went through that. And in December, we wrapped up the revision process of consideration of the proposals. And over the, I would say, the holiday period, our general counsel drafted a revised charter of the proposals that were submitted. Now, before I get into the revised charter, I just wanted to touch on the right to the Charter Bill of Rights. And I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that Barry and Donna and folks were touching on. And as we look at, I just wanted to touch on right to water for a moment. You know, we are in the middle of a pandemic, and when the pandemic started, one of the top things folks were being told is to wash their hands for 20 seconds with soap and water, warm water. And we know at the beginning of the pandemic, we had thousands of folks in the city of Detroit that were without water. And what I'll put forth to folks is that, pandemic or not one person should be without water. And so what we did, we took forth this Detroit Bill of Rights and implemented language to establish in the charter the Water Affordability Plan, which you saw that language. And what the reason why it's so important to put that in the charter, as mentioned in the chat, there was this Water Affordability Plan was passed by the City Council in 2005, and it was not implemented. So we put that language in the charter to ensure that it is implemented. We also put in to the charter on water a advisory group to change the structure of the Water Commission to make it truly an advisory group that hears from folks, that hears on the water affordability and assistance and what's needed. So put in that language to add that teeth into the charter. Because what I want to emphasize to folks, the reason why it's so important to put in the charter is that, you know, administrations come and go, city council members come and go. So while we'll have, if we got a city council administration that said, yes, we implement the water affordability plan, the next election, we can get a different group that does not want to do that. So I just wanted to emphasize that. And when we go to the right to safety, when we're talking about public safety, and as mentioned, you know, I think this, the uprisings around the summer really emphasize this, but these are issues that have been coming up in the city for a while. We need to look at public safety, in my view, as a way as a way of how do we ensure that people are safe, and how do we ensure that our funds and our priorities are going to keep people safe, but also giving them the opportunity to thrive. Because what we know is that oftentimes crime is a result of extreme poverty and lack of opportunity. So what we also put in language is to ensure that our city government is funding the departments in the city that gives folks the ability to thrive, as we're thinking about our health department, as we're thinking about mental health services, as we're thinking about housing, as we're thinking about workforce development, ensuring that our city government is just not looking at the budget to say we're going to spend $300 million on police and that's going to solve our crime issue. That's only going to further incarcerate and criminalize folks while not actually handling the root causes that we know about this. And I also want to put forth on the right to safety, on the surveillance piece. And there was the question on folks supporting surveillance that Donna put forth. And that's a very important question. And what I would say is that we need to get to the root cause of why folks feel that they need surveillance to be safe. There was a couple of comments in here about police not responding when they're called and when they're high crime areas. There are a couple there was comments on, the way that policing is done in the city. Spending $30 million on surveillance that is broken is not safety. Because what it is doing, it is transferring this mandate to have your city safe to technology, and that's not going to save it. And we have to really, for me, and this is just my personal opinion, that's taking the easy way out, and it's creating a broken system that will further criminalize folks, and it's not actually getting to what we need to talk about. And folks may see it as hard work, but it's very simple work to combat poverty and to increase opportunities in the city. So I just wanted to make that note on the right to safety. On the immigration front, we did put language in there to prohibit the city from working with federal authorities on immigration. Folks, we have limited funds in the city that needs to be going to the programs that we need to have a thriving city. The federal government has a budget that they have their budget and their policies. The federal government also needs to ensure that we have comprehensive immigration reform. But right now, our city should not be involved in federal work, period. And what I'll put forth to you is that when you have a group of your population that is fearful because that they have to carry papers around, or that their children will come home after school to their parents not home, when you have that here, you also have communities that are less safe because you have folks that do not want to interact with police, do not want to interact with fellow community members because they are afraid that they will be deported the very next day. So I just wanted to make that clear as well. Also, when we think about right to health, public health in this pandemic has become a forefront issue. In our charter, we had one small paragraph on the health, public health. It didn't even outline what our public health department should do and the functions of it. So we provided language that we got from both the Charter Bill of Rights, but also our Chief Public Health Officer, Denise Fair. We implemented those changes, and also folks with SCIU, to ensure that we actually have a comprehensive health department written in the charter, that we have public health clinics, that we have mental health services, that we have the opportunity for our health department to work with private providers and to work with the mental health authorities and the health authorities around to ensure that our residents are getting that access to healthcare, including physical and mental health, that they need. One other thing that we put in the health department is to establish a mental health crisis response unit that will answer mental health calls that our police officers should not be answering, because they just we should not expect our police officers who are trained in one aspect to also be social workers and mental health providers to respond to those calls. The reason why we put it in the health department is because these folks need to have the supervision and the resources from public health experts. So I just wanted to highlight that as well. I just wanted to get through some of the highlights in the subcommittee and then go over the overall charter quickly. On environmental health, when we're talking about, I know folks on the east side are, as we're thinking about, as we're looking at the FCA and, the increase of pollution output with FCA expansion, as we're thinking about the high asthma rates that already exist in Detroit and across the city, we are faced with a public health crisis when it comes to our environment. And we are faced with very many cases of environmental racism in our city. And we need to have a comprehensive department that deals with environmental justice and sustainability. And as Barry mentioned, within this department, we've also established the Environmental Commission that will have, language there that mandates that the city creates this commission and that they have specific folks from impacted areas across the city on this commission as well. Because residents know their own experiences and they need to be at the table as we craft these policies. And also we put in the charter the public health fund, which as you have these corporate polluters who are getting fines, those fines will go back into the public health fund, which was already established, but is now we put in a charter, and those funds will go directly to the impacted communities instead of just going into the general fund. On the next aspect, as we're thinking about recreation, and I put in the chat, Donna, but the Detroit Bill of Rights did put forth that floor of green space, and we agreed to that floor of green space, as Barry mentioned, that some folks have parks and green space, some do not. And as you mentioned, as development and things may take away green space, we put in that floor to give residents a language in the charter to point to the city to say, you're actually mandated to keep this green space. You cannot take it away. And we also strengthened the Recreation Commission to be another voice to the executive branch and the legislative branch to say you are not in compliance with this. And you'll see in the draft charter that there is language also to strengthen the corporation council. Actually, it moves to an elected position. That was in another subcommittee, but it moves to corporation council to be elected position to ensure that the corporation council is enforcing the charter, not enforcing any will of the executive, not enforcing any will of the legislative, but enforcing the city charter on behalf of residents.
I have a question about that, Denzel.
Yes.
Because Crystal Crittenden had been a corporation counsel who was serving at the pleasure of Mayor Bing. Is that correct?
So that's I think that's the question that folks were trying to answer in that aspect. And I think with this revision, it's attempting to take out that question of if, for example, if she were to be in this elected position, she would not have any strings to say, oh, you can't act on that behalf. If you think it's in the best interest of residents and abiding by the charter, you would not be forced to stay silent or anything like that. So that's what we were also trying to get to at that revision. So on the right to recreation, like you said, if they're taking away green space, you have all of those components to say, you're not in compliance with the charter, you can't do that, even before it could even reach a CBO process. And then just quickly on the access and mobility, one thing that we have established in the transportation department is a low income fare that to go along with the student fare, the veterans fare, and the senior fare that we have for DDOT. And we actually, we gave the language to establish this low income fare, but we also gave the language for the Department of Transportation to work with community members to establish how that will look. So a lot of these provisions will then go to the necessary departments and the legislative branch to implement those as well. So that's one thing that I also wanted to speak to folks today, to let you know that even if this charter is passed, we will still need community input and community engagement afterwards as well. We also strengthened the Transportation Advisory Commission within the DDOT to also ensure that they are getting stakeholder input, bus rider input, and transit user input on these on what's going on in the department. And we try to make it really come from a focus on folks who are transit dependent, because that's who our transit system should be built around, to ensure that routes are where they need to be, to ensure that the coaches are running on time. And we also are taking into account, we're trying to look forward to the future to ensure that the city creates a motorized and non-motorized master transit plan. So to ensure that as we are, that there's community input on, as we're going into mobility, that there's robust community input on how, if autonomous vehicles are on Detroit streets, how that will work, how ensuring that bike safety is there on the Detroit streets. We want to make sure that it's well-rounded and not just there on not just on motorized transportation. So, and I would just say on the overall charter, on the basic needs, we as a charter commission try to ensure that this is a charter that, one, centers the most vulnerable in the city, to ensure that the most vulnerable are protected, because we know when we protect and uplift the most vulnerable, it lifts up all of us. And we want to make sure that this was a Detroit-centric charter that looks forward for the next 15 to 20 years. We thought about, how do these issues come up today, and how could they possibly appear in the future, and how do we want to solve them today and into the future? I'll put in the chat, the revised charter draft is public right now. Where we are in the process now is that we are accepting comments from the public on the draft. You can go on the website, you'll see all of our minutes. But what we want to make sure to hear from folks to say, oh, that doesn't sound right, or we love this, or you might want to change this word because that's not really clear. So I'll include the website in the chat for folks to have, because there is an online portal that you can submit comments. You can view the charter, the revised charter draft, and you can also review our upcoming meeting schedule. Our next committee of the whole meeting for the Charter Commission is next Tuesday on what is that, the 9th? Sorry. Yep, next Tuesday, the 9th in the evening. But I will be sure to include that link for folks to have that. And you will also on the website can see all the subcommittee meetings as well. But as we get to the Q&A question, I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that information. I do have one more question, but I think I see that Mary Sheffield has joined us right now.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad that you were able to join us.
I do apologize for being a little late. There was a conflict in another meeting, but I see that everything is going as planned, and I want to thank my wonderful staff member, Barry Blackwell, who I know stepped in and was able to contribute a lot. So I am here if you have any additional questions, but thank you, Donna, for all you do as well, too.
Thank you. So I do have a question for you before we open it up for questions, and that is related to the water affordability plan. My understanding is the reason the city is not enforcing the water affordability plan, or one of the reasons, is they say it violates the Michigan Constitution, something about a vote, or Michigan law, something about a Bolt decision,
Yeah.
The fact that you have to charge everybody the same thing. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, you just nailed it. That's essentially what I've been told, is that we legally cannot do it. We've presented several legal opinions that actually counter what the city law department is stating. So depending on who you talk with, what lawyer you get an opinion from, the opinions do vary. And the issue again is, if we were to implement this water affordability plan, who would pay for it, in the structure of how that would actually look. And so those are the two challenges that we've had. I do have a draft ordinance that's ready to go as we speak. However, our current law department will not approve it as to form, which means that they will not put his signature on it to say that this is a legal document. And because of that, we've had a lot of issues with being able to bring it before the full council. But there is an ordinance that is currently done, it's drafted. I've worked with numerous water organizations over the last couple of years to get that formulated. It's so much internal kind of like pushback to actually put that ordinance forward. So we'll love the help of the community to try to push that. And if you have any ideas or suggestions around that fee structure issue that we've been kind of dealing with as well too. But my hope is to hopefully bring that ordinance forward again and begin some public discourse on it, because it is done and it's ready to go. It's just the financial piece that we're having issues with. So.
Okay, well, I have a brief comment and then one more question. I'm sorry, I did have one more question, but I think it's relevant. It's interesting to me that the city takes that position, but in the enforcement, but in the stormwater drainage fees, they did assign a different fee to churches than they did to other rate payers, right? So they did make an exception when it came to the stormwater drainage fees on behalf of churches, but they will not make an exception or test the constitutionality of a water affordability plan when it comes to low-income residents. I think that's really interesting. And I also think it's interesting that there's selective enforcement, that they will shut off the water to a poor person, but not to GM or not to a major corporation. So sometimes, even if you have the same rate, if one person's rate is being enforced and another person's is not, is it the same rate? I guess that's my question, because I see differences there. But I have a question, and this is for you or Denzel or anybody who may know the answer to this. The next stage after you guys put this together is it goes to the Attorney General for review of constitutionality. Is that correct?
So from my understanding, what I've heard as relates to some of the ordinances that if we were to vote on it and move it forward, it really wouldn't be taken up in court unless someone tried to bring a lawsuit and challenge the ordinance in itself. And right. So it would just, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
No, I'm sorry, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. That was all I was going to say. I've never had a situation.
I was not referencing the ordinance. I think it's silly. I think, to say, well, they might sue us. Well, they might, but you've already been sued by people. And so the city has been sued based on a lot of the water policy. It seems like that might be a legal fight worth fighting. If you're
most definitely. Listen, we're on the exact same page. But, I think it is one that's worth fighting. And I think we have a great standing in case if someone were to bring a lawsuit. The issue is there political will to actually address the issue? There's things right now that we're doing that, the law is bent and moved and for to make things work when we want to make it work. You get what I'm saying? And then when it's certain issues where we don't, we always get this, pushback that it's illegal. And so I agree with you. I think, yes, to me, in my opinion, it's something that we should move forward with as a city and be prepared if someone were to file a lawsuit. But again, I personally, and I've been working on this for almost 8 years, there has not been the political will in a lot of ways to move this issue forward. I put a resolution out calling for a moratorium 2-3 years ago on water shutoffs, urging the governor right before the pandemic hit to put a moratorium on water shutoffs, right? And so this issue, we've been meeting with water advocates for a very long time. I've tried to do resolutions. I put the ordinance forward. We keep getting pushback. And so it's going to take a larger effort to really hold the administration, DWSD, Gary Brown, all of these. And I'm just being very honest because I'm here to represent those who need this help, to hold them accountable, to actually put something forward that is an ordinance, that is not just, an order that can expire at whatever time it expires. But we need something on the books that is sustainable and that remains in place here in the city of Detroit. So I'm with you. I completely agree. But we have to have a collective that is ready to move forward in pushing that.
Council President Pro-Tem, this is Orlando Bailey. I want to tag on to Donna's question as far as the trail of the revised charter, and maybe Denzel can help us with this. where does the charter go? Does the Attorney General for the state of Michigan review the charter and give her stamp, and then the voters of the city vote on it?
So you might want to ask Dennis on the approval. I know that the voters vote on it. I'm not sure if the Attorney General reviews the charter recommendations, but Denzel, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, thank you, Pro-Tem Sheffield, and thanks Orlando and Donna for that. So right now, once we approve the revised charter, which we're aiming for at the beginning of March, it will go to the governor's office and Attorney General for review. How that goes is that so it's not, we got further clarification. So the Attorney General and Governor can say, oh, we don't feel that this is constitutional. That does not mean that we can't continue to put in that we have to strip it from the charter. It's just the opinion of the Attorney General that will be unconstitutional. So then that could give someone the ability to come back and sue on the constitutionality, but it doesn't preclude us from including in the charter. And to the point on the water affordability, as the Pro-Tem has said, this language came from legal experts on this, and the language that we put in is that the bills cannot be more than 3% of someone's income. Right. So hopefully I'm in agreement with the Pro-Tem and Donna and folks on saying that there needs to be that will there to say we're going to stand up for water as a human right, and that's what the folks working on the Charter Bill of Rights have done, and as a commission we've agreed to.
Yeah, so that's actually an EPA standard, that 3%. It is not something that's come up with locally. So I do want to thank people for the fights that you've made. I want to thank Councilwoman Sheffield for recent votes at the council table. I think that we see that you did not vote in favor of the officers countersuing protesters, and I appreciate that vote. We have some questions, and I want to make sure that we get to all of those questions as we move forward. So we asked about the water for affordability that was put in place. That was Brenda Butler's question. As I'm scrolling through to try to find other questions, does anybody have any questions that you'd like to raise right now? If you do, can you raise your hand? Going to the reaction button at the bottom, you can raise your hand there.
Also, if you are dialing in by phone, you can mute yourself by pressing *6.
Okay, so since nobody's raising their hands, I want to talk to Councilwoman Sheffield about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. You helped put that language together, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund was a part of the Inclusionary Housing Ordinance that was passed back in 2017. We started off with a kind of a little back and forth with the administration because they at first didn't really want to honor it. And so we spent the last couple of years during budget deliberations trying to get money allocated in a dedicated stream of revenue to go towards that fund. So we currently have a couple of $1 million in the Housing Trust Fund. That fund is being funded through the 20% of all commercial sales in the city go into that fund. And so, yes, that fund is for low-income housing, individuals that are at or below 50% AMI, which I think is amazing because we know that the current affordable housing that we set aside at 80% AMI does not truly reflect the income of the Detroiters. So we're still working on building momentum around that housing trust fund and trying to get more streams of funding for it as well.
Okay, great. Has the Bill of Rights been voted on by City Council? That's from Gail O'Neill.
No, that has not been voted on because that is charter recommendations.
Okay. Do you think if it was voted on, it would pass? Any thoughts on that?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't. Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so. Yes, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Denzel, Council President Pro-Tem, there was a question raised earlier, and I would love for you guys to verbalize the answer around the inclusion of LGBTQ folks in the right to safety here in the city of Detroit. I know that there was some back and forth in the chat about that, but I would love to hear your answer as it relates to the Bill of Rights.
Are you asking, was it included, or do I support it being included?
I think the question,
Both.
why wasn't it included?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure why it was not included. My office, I participated in a lot of the meetings, but I also had some of my, most of the time, my staff was in some of those working groups. I'm sure if it came up, it would have been supported wholeheartedly. I support it wholeheartedly. And so if that's something that we need to discuss with Denzel and the rest of the group, I'm sure we can make some possible amendments to make sure that that's included in there.
For sure. So just to note, the 2012 charter had protections for LGBTQ folks in it, and this charter revision, this revised charter reaffirms that. In addition, we have strengthened the Civil Rights and Inclusion Office to ensure that any forms of discrimination against LGBTQ folks are included in that. But what I'll say is that one thing I will say about the revised charter, it was a strong charter in 2012, and they did include protections. And I think Detroit was at the forefront, especially in the state of Michigan, behind East Lansing. And I say that as a Michigan State Spartan, but on including protections for LGBTQ folks and gender identity and sexual orientation. So those are included, and they've been affirmed in this charter.
Thank you. And Marie Shoulders had a question early on. I think this is the right to safety. She pointed out the citizens residing in Jefferson Village have been victims.
Olivia, I'm on the phone.
Okay, Marie, you raise your own question then. Marie?
That wasn't me. I didn't say I'm on the phone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know who said that. Okay. So there's been a rash of burglaries and thefts over the past week, herself included, and they've made police reports and nothing has been done. They were promised heightened attention in their community. She was up all night last night periodically looking out the window and did not see any squad cars. So the question is, do people in Jefferson Village have a right to safety? And what does that look like?
So most definitely everyone in the city of Detroit, no matter where you live, has a right to safety. And I think we're getting ready now to go March 5th. The mayor presents his budget to council. I know that there's been definitely an increase in attention towards a budget this fiscal year. And so I think the conversations about how we utilize our funds from a policing standpoint has to be reexamined. While I support, some technology when it comes to surveillance, I don't think that is the answer to a lot of the issues that we see with crime. I would prefer, like you mentioned, more scout cars, more foot on the ground policing, community policing versus just cameras everywhere. And so we have to start having those real serious conversations about how we utilize those particular funds. So I would encourage you, I'm not sure what community or neighborhood you're in, but if you want to get with us, we can make sure we connect you with your neighborhood police officer, if you have not already done so, to make sure that they are aware of the increase or uptick in crime in your area, to make sure that they are policing that area appropriately. So
myself and several other members of this community have addressed this issue with the police. They promised us that they were going to increase the patrol over here. We're sort of in a little isolated corner over here, and we get a lot of foot traffic from across Jefferson. However, just because we're in a little isolated sub over here doesn't mean that the police don't need to ride through here. It's the foot traffic. They come, they walk up and down our streets, and then they come back at night and vandalize our cars. My next door neighbor got his catalytic converter cut off his car Thursday right in front of the house. And other people have had things missing from their cars. Cars have been stolen. Somebody broke in my car, ripped my console apart and stole my remote control out of the console in the car that was sitting in the driveway, opened my garage and helped himself to my snow blower and other items and my bike. He went around the corner on Edley and Mount Clair, left the bike because he was so greedy he couldn't carry everything, but he made off with my big boy snow blower and nobody saw anything. But when I called the police, they passed the bike on the sidewalk and I'm explaining to them what's going on. And then I look up and say, oh my God, my bike is gone. They said, well, we saw the bike around the corner. So they went back and got it, but nobody said anything. I haven't seen any police. I've been terrified, upset, angry, and everything. I didn't sleep last night. I'm up and looking out the windows and everything because he still has my remote control. And I know that it's inactivated because we reset the password, but it's just the idea that he still has it that says to me that he plans to come back. We need increased patrol cars over here in this little subdivision where I am.
Miss Marie, if I could, I'm going to shoot you my email address. If you could email me, and I want to loop you in I'm going to shoot it to you in the chat, so that way everyone else can have it as well. If you could email me,
please do,
and I will get on top of that first thing in the morning.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Find this in policy, but it seems to me as though police are not present in some neighborhoods and they are over present in some places. So yes, police are overrepresented in places like downtown where you actually have police forces and other things. And so I guess the question is, Dolores Orr talks about having incentives or having police live in the community. Now I know residency does not make it possible for us to make that, to mandate it, but there's incentives that could be created to have police live inside of our communities, just like there's incentives that were created to let bedrock employees live inside of our community. It is a matter of will, and I don't know how that public policy lines up, but I think if we looked at the allocation of the patrols that do exist, that would be helpful to people, because it seems as though patrols exist to protect certain people and survey other people. And I think, is there some way to wrap that into a policy that would let people know that they are getting the service they're paying for in policing?
I think you're raising a really, really good point. And Barry, I know he's taking some notes down, and we can submit a formal memo request asking what policy options that we have as it relates to that. I know I have looked into residency. It was something that I tried to take up when I first got on council, but was not able to do that because of, I think it was some state law that does not allow us to move forward with that. But I do like the idea of trying to incentivize ways to get police officers to possibly live in the city. And so we can look at that and have our legislative policy division provide a report on various ways legally that we can do that and report that back out to you guys. I like the idea of the equal enforcement. I think that's really important. When the Detroit Police Department comes before us in a couple of weeks, I will make sure that I get something in writing. And then I have to kind of think about this a little bit more, but I'm not sure what council can do from a legislative standpoint to ensure that equal enforcement is happening. But it's something that I will look into, because I do think it's a very important point. And we can make sure we submit some questions in writing to the department and make sure that they get back with it. So I also think I didn't get the lady's name. I'm sorry. What was her name?
Marie Shoulders.
Marie Shoulders.
Ms. Marie, I do also think it's important. We can send you over. I'm gonna have Barry send you over the public hearings that are forthcoming. It's always good to hear directly from people who are experiencing these things. And so when the police department does, and you have the actual chief that is there, and now that we're, all at home via Zoom, you may have the opportunity that you may have not had in the past to possibly speak, for your community and let them know firsthand the impact that you're experiencing. I think that always goes a long way, because we can fight and advocate for you all we want, but it's always good to have you there and to hear your voice as well too.
There are a few participants who have their hand raised, and I want to make sure we get to their questions. Tara Brown, go ahead with your question or comment.
I have a question. How do the low-income individuals take advantage of this assistance in the Housing Trust Fund? Because right now I work with an organization that has a woman that is homeless living in a hotel because the Detroit police from the 10th precinct went over and acted as bailiffs for her sex offender registered landlord to throw her out 6 days before Christmas. She's still living in the hotel. The city's not saying anything. We've sent information to Mayor Duggan. We've sent it to the people in charge of the neighborhoods. As a matter of fact, Tracy, one of my neighbors, sent something to you. None of you all have responded.
So I know that our office has responded. If this is the incident with
attorney, yeah, when it first happened, it went to your office. You didn't respond.
Okay, so I know that we never not respond to emails. It's just something that we just don't do.
Oh, you absolutely do. I needed a stop sign in my neighborhood and nobody responded. And then
if you feel that way, I apologize. We have no reason not to respond. So if you would like to send us over.
Answer my question. How does she take advantage of the assistant in the housing trust? Because at this point, when I hear your voice, it sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. It's the same stuff over and over again.
Okay.
Miss Brown.
But how she can answer the question.
We like to keep our meeting rules in place, please. If we can remember our meeting rules, we do want to be respectful. We do understand your concerns, Ms. Brown.
Yeah. But I will answer her question though. I don't mind. I'm not offended at all. So the answer to the trust fund, first of all, if the lady is still living in a hotel, even after the comments that were made today, I have no problem with trying to assist this individual get housing. That's the most important thing to me. And so if you would like to kindly send another email, and if we overlooked it, I apologize to you. We would never do anything on purpose. And so if you would like to send another email to our office, we can look into that immediately to try to see what ways we can get her housed. The housing trust fund, though, that money is sitting in there, and right now it has not been allocated. The idea is to use it for specific projects or developments that are targeted towards low-income housing. So right now, because we haven't reached a sufficient amount that we think it will have an impact, the money is just still there waiting. Maybe during this budget season, we can begin to distribute it. But as of now, we have not allocated it towards a particular project. There is a hotline that I want to give you. I don't have the number offline, but it's called the Coordinated Assessment Management System. It's called CAM, C-A-M. People who are experiencing homelessness can call that number, and I can try to I'll have Barry put it in a chat for you, and they will direct you to individuals who can try to place individuals who are experiencing homeless in housing right away. So the intake process, you answer some questions, and then they essentially go out and identify the housing opportunities that are available currently right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Council President Pro-Tem. We do want to remind everybody of the ground rules. We want to remain respectful and as civil as possible. Brenda Butler, your question or comment?
Yes, my statement that I wrote in the chat was about the water affordability plan that was put in place when Councilwoman Joanne Watson was on council. And not only was there a water affordability plan put in place, there were also funds in that water affordability plan. And when Mercado, at that time, Mercado was at DWSD, and there were, during the time that he was going through his court case, there were articles in the Detroit News about how that money was spent. So we, as a community, would like to know what happened to those funds from that water affordability plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So we did do some research, and we actually requested a report from LPD on former member Joanne Watson's plan. The only thing that we found was an actual resolution that was passed that kind of detailed the actual plan as far as actual money being allocated. I couldn't tell you if that was actually ever set aside because I haven't seen anything thus far. In fact, I can send you, Ms. Butler, the report that came from LPD that actually outlined what exactly Member Watson had in place. And it was essentially a resolution that laid out a water affordability plan. But I don't think money was ever set aside. And if it was, that was well before I got to council, so I couldn't really speak to that. I know that currently now there's really no money set aside for water affordability, but it is something that we're still working on. And in fact, the ordinance that we have now mirrors what Councilmember Watson had put forward a couple of years ago, or years ago, I should say.
Thank you, Council President Pro Tem. Tribute Monarch, go ahead with your question or comment. Is Tribute still with us? All right, Tribute, we will try to get back to you. We're gonna go with Rhonda, who has her hand up. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to ask, what is your take on two items? One, an affordable housing plan for the city of Detroit, and then also the inclusion and equality of Black residents of Detroit, a plan for making sure that we are included on the front end of the planning during the growth of the city.
Yes. So affordable housing is like one of my main, issues that I've been fighting for a very long time. So again, when I first came into city council, I did the ordinance on affordability, the inclusionary housing ordinance. I've been working extremely hard. In fact, I saved the home repair grant program, which helps our senior citizens and our elderly who are in need of grants, not loans, to help with quality affordable housing in the city of Detroit. And so my answer to you is that I'm a huge advocate for it. I think that, we have to build quality housing for all income levels. And I think, making sure that we are protecting the current Detroiters who are in need of housing is important. And so I always make sure that that is at the top of my kind of to-do list. I will mention this. We are really working on right now redefining how we allocate affordable housing in Detroit, because a lot of what we're allocating as affordable housing, as I mentioned earlier, is not technically reaching the income levels of Detroiters. So a lot of people who are in need of affordable housing are missing out on some of the new projects that are coming because they don't fall within that income bracket and they still can't afford it. And so really being intentional about making sure that the projects reflect Detroit's area median income, not Detroit, Warren, and Livonia, which we're currently using now. So my focus moving forward is that that more of the new projects that are coming in, so that Detroiters are included in that those actually reflect Detroiters' area median income so that they can be included in those projects. And then also trying to advocate more for home ownership opportunities, because we can build all these apartments, all we want. But I think also it's important that we are providing, quality, affordable home ownership opportunities for, families, our young people, and our seniors. So that's important for me. And then the second thing about inclusion of Detroiters on projects, I was a huge advocate for the community benefits proposal A and B. The proposal B won pass, which was the watered down version. And because of that, we're seeing, community engagement in some of these projects that to me is not really community driven and community led. It's more city led. And because of that, I don't believe it's as authentic as it should be as it relates to truly including the community's voice. So with that being said, we're in the process of amending the community benefits ordinance that was, by the way, passed by the residents in Detroit. And what that does is make sure that, when projects come before council, if they're over a certain threshold, then the community must be included in those conversations about how that development looks, what are the community benefits, hiring of Detroiters, all of those things that are important to individuals who are going to be impacted. So we are in the process of revisiting that ordinance. And I know also Council President Jones recently passed a community, a community outreach ordinance that mandates engagement ordinance. So that mandates that some of the projects that are coming before council as well too, that are paid for by your tax dollars, that they have to engage the community as well. So Those are the two main ways that I believe that community has a voice in these projects. The main thing is just making sure that we actually strengthen them in a way that you all actually have a true voice, that it's just not a watered down process and they're presenting things to you and you just stamp it for approval, but you actually have a voice in shaping how things look in your community.
Okay, Ruth Johnson wants to point out that the community outreach ordinance does not require education or engagement. And I know that among many of my community development peers, we are not satisfied with that ordinance. And we do believe that the community benefits process needs to be improved to truly involve community voice. Tribute, are you now available to speak? Is Tribute still here? All right, Tora, you have one more comment and then we're going to close off the comments. And I think we have another poll.
Yes.
I have another question. I'm glad you brought up home ownership. What are you all gonna do as far as the city with holding people accountable who start these 501c3 organizations and start promising home ownership to people when they're actually real estate ventures? 3 of them off the top of my head: Storehouse of Hope, Northwest Detroit Neighborhood Development, and Cass Community Social Services Tiny Homes. They promise home ownership, telling people that after a certain amount of years, they're gonna get these houses. And then you all give them this property and all these tax breaks when really there's nothing that they're giving other than leases. Again, that's part of the affordable housing component. These people need to be held accountable.
Thank you so much. I love your passion. I really do. So the tiny homes project, I thought that they were offering home ownership. I know that has been a project that has been well received. I know a lot of homeless individuals. I actually got a chance to tour that site when it first opened, and they were at capacity, people waiting to get into those homes. So it was a huge hit. I haven't received any negative feedback with it. You're the first.
I'm stunned because I sent you a letter. I live in a tiny house.
was trying to go ahead. I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
I sent you a letter. I live in a tiny house. I have a lease. That's how I know that's what's being done. As is the people over in Brightmoor with the Northwest Detroit Neighborhood Development. All of these places are promising home ownership. We have leases. We don't have land contracts. We don't have lease to own. It is all these are real estate ventures that have benefited.
Let me speak real quickly to Northwest Development Corporation.
I'm going to submit that and check in on that. So I'm glad she mentioned
Please
that.
do.
Right. I just want to say real quickly about Northwest Detroit Neighborhood Development Corporation, which I'm not even sure is still operating. This was a tax credit funded project, and there were a few of them where they said at the end of 15 years, people can go ahead and purchase it. And it was a nonprofit that had not figured out what to do in 15 years. Sometimes real estate projects are done without people figuring that 15 years will come. My understanding is that there are people who have sued, and I think I saw somebody here, but maybe there's people who have sued and won in some of these instances, but this was like from 15 years ago and 20 years ago, and the promises were not fulfilled. So I agree with you. I don't know about the structure of the tiny homes, but I know that with NDC, and there was another one in the McDougall Hunt neighborhood where they did the same kind of thing. The property owners or the leasers ended up having to sue, and some of them did win in court.
Yeah, well, I think anyone who has made any type of promises or is in a contract to hold, to do certain things, especially as it relates to home ownership, should be held accountable. I mean, as simple as that. So the issue is that we just have to, know that it's going on, and then try to enforce whatever, especially if we're giving them abatements or city land that is below market value. If the city is contributing in any way to that project, we have more leverage to begin to hold them accountable. So I will look into the tiny homes. I have no problem doing that, and I'm glad I was made aware tonight. So thank you.
Okay.
Donna, I just wanted to, for just a second, there's a couple of questions on the residency. Just want to know, well, you're right on the state law that we can't do the residency requirement. In the charter, we did put language to put forth go as far as we could to ensure that what we can put is it's called a on-call language that says that, or we can put that public employees must live within 20 miles. I know it's definitely not what we want. I wish we could put residency in, but I just wanted to note that we did put that language in. There was also a question on partner organizations of grassroots to clean up the air quality of citizens in 48217. I want to note from Ms. Shoulders, I want to note that the Environmental Commission language that's included is to help ensure that those grassroots organizations that are working on environmental issues are at the table to ensure that the newly established Environmental Justice and Sustainability Office are working on those projects. So it's an accountability advisory commission on that will ensure that we have those folks at the table. And the last thing that I want to point out is that we also insert language that makes it clear that a resident can put forth a complaint into the corporation council on a violation of a charter. So if there's anyone in city government, if they feel that the charter has not been abided by, before it was opaque process, but now we've made it clear that residents have that right to action on violations of the charter. So I just wanted to bring those things up throughout the conversation, as they came up throughout the conversation.
Can I ask to close out the Q&A? I really want to know about what happens after the vote, if leading up to the vote and what happens after the vote for the Charter Review Commission. I understand that there is a lot in this new charter review, the creation of offices and positions, and I know that there are budgetary implications, and I know that this particular review will meet a lot of opposition and maybe even have campaigns that are run on television, that are run on radio, encouraging residents not to vote for this review commission. So can you tell me what that process looks like? And if it is indeed passed, when does it take effect?
For sure. What I'll say, you're absolutely right. We're anticipating opposition to it. I think this charter is ending the status quo of things that have happened in the city. So you're going to have a lot of folks upset. We're already hearing comments from Gary Brown that the water provisions are illegal, when we know that's not true. So we know that opposition is coming. Part of the reason I think we want to make sure that folks like you all are equipped with what's in the charter, and then the opportunity to ask and get all the information that is needed, because we will need as many folks, and I know folks on this call are the leaders in the community on your block, if folks hear about a charter, you're able to get the accurate information to folks. What I'll also say is that, and I know Pro-Tem Sheffield has raised concerns about this, is that, our budget for the commission in our last year was severely cut. And our budget for this year is supposed to go through campaigning and educating folks on the charter. And that was cut in the last budget season. And we're going to be, I think soon we're going to be back before the council to try to get that funding reinstated. So if folks can uplift that on the need to have our funding back, according to state law, we're supposed to have all the funds we need to carry out our duties, and that involves educating folks on the charter. So as much help as possible on that will be greatly appreciated. I mean, for the simple fact that we just need to educate folks on the charter, whether you agree with some proposals or components of it or not, we want to make sure that we have an educated electorate and educated residents to take action on this. Lastly, on the question of what happens after. Right now, the revised charter, I just want to bring up I'm going to bring it up so I can get you the exact language. The revised charter, it'll be on the ballot in August. And let me just, I saw the, I'll put it in the chat. Sorry, I got it. So it will be, it shall become effective once the vote is certified, if it is an affirmative. So as soon as the August vote is certified, the charter will be in effect.
Thank you, Denzel. I'm yelled at by the ETN and LEAP staff.
Yes.
And I'm gonna be yelled at once more because we have to have this question answered. I apologize for this.
Final question.
Okay, final question. But Rhonda raises an important question, Mary Sheffield. What do you stand on the $600 million in overtaxation and property taxes? What should be done by the city? People want to know this.
So thank you for raising that question. So I was made aware of this quite some time ago, before the news reports came out and the public started getting notice of it. And what we did was we formulated a working group, myself, along with the, what is the name of the organization? The Unconstitutional Property Tax Foreclosure Group, several other organizations. We came together and we tried to figure out a way that we can begin to provide compensation to those who were overassessed. We started off by, of course, wanting to explore the idea of direct compensation. We were told that there's no way that that can ever happen because that would just put the city in huge budgetary issues. And so we moved from that to looking at ways that we can provide in-kind services to Detroiters who were impacted. What we wanted to do was create a menu of options so that those who were impacted can pick and choose what was best.
We're gonna fix that. Sorry about that.
No problem. So anyway, long story short, we issued a report. The report pretty much named several in-kind ways that we can help individuals who are overassessed, whether it be getting properties through the land bank, getting priority in some of our existing city programs. And that report then, the administration took that report and created a resolution, which at this time council has not supported. And so we are still exploring how we move forward with the issue of overassessment. I will tell you this, that there still is an effort ongoing to urge the state to create a fund to still help directly compensate individuals that were overassessed. I am still advocating that we try to provide property tax relief on individuals' current bills if they can show that they were overassessed during those time periods. That would take a change in state law. However, I am still looking at ways in which we can do that, and it'll also have budget implications, but we are still looking at ways to do that. So that conversation is still ongoing. And yes, we will keep you guys abreast of that.
Thank you so much. Before I get in any more trouble, Savannah.
While we're pulling up the poll, I just want to say that we will continue to meet and share this information.
Yes, I have asked folks in the chat if you're interested in a follow-up meeting to this, please type yes. That will give us feedback on how we can move forward with follow-up and just checking your interest. You all seem very interested. For the last poll, can we, comp team, can we please get that typed in the chat as well? But which right on the Detroit Bill of Rights do you think should be the top community priority? If you can go ahead and fill that out quickly, that will help. If you're on Facebook, you can type in which right you'd like to see as a priority as well. The right to water and sanitation, the right to environmental health, the right to safety, the right to live free from determination, the right to recreation, the right to access and mobility, the right to housing, and the right to fulfillment of basic needs.
And that is the right to live free of discrimination.
Yes. As you fill out your poll, I'll just say really quickly that if you leave your email address, we can make sure that we get you connected to our Leap Alert, our electronic newsletter, so that you stay abreast of all of the community meetings and different events that we have going on within our LEAP district and at ECN.
Okay.
How we doing on the poll results?
We're at about
we have about 57% of participants that have voted. So I'm gonna go ahead and close it so we can see what the results are.
Okay, and I'm seeing right to safety in the chat, right to fulfillment of basic human needs in the chat, right to housing. Thank you. Thank you for those emails coming in.
Okay.
To water and sanitation with 29%.
So right to water is important. And I want people to keep in mind that even though there's a moratorium on water right now, water shutoffs right now, the meter is still running. And if you're sheltering in place at home, that meter might be running faster than it used to run. So we need to have that right to water in place, just in case we don't have the long-term or permanent, shutoff on moratorium on water shutoffs. Nobody should go without water.
I just want to lift up that the second thing was also a right to housing.
Yes, right to housing.
Yep. Thank you for that.
And
thank you.
The reality is that all of these rights, the right to housing, meeting basic needs was another big one, and water, those are all intertwined.
Yes. So thank you all again for tuning in with us this evening. We do have some resources and quick announcements that we want to be sure to get out to for you to be able to use yourselves or take back to your communities and your neighbors. I will quickly announce, you all did not know it, but we had a surprise raffle. And so we have 2 raffle winners. They are off of Facebook. It was the first person who qualified to be able to leave a comment with us is Nicole Banks. Nicole, if you will leave your email in the comment section on Facebook, we will make sure to get you your raffle prize. And on Zoom, our first person that joined the meeting was Marcia Rice. Marcia, I do see your information already in the your email already in the chat. So thank you. Congratulations.
You're welcome.
Our next SAG, if you enjoyed tonight, our next scheduled SAG is April 6th, but stay tuned. We could have a special SAG meeting or special community meetings before then. So please stay connected with us.
We do have on February 25th, a Black History Month celebration. Jamon Jordan of the Black Scroll Network is going to give us a history of Detroit's East Side. If you don't know Jamon and you don't know that he knows history and he brings it alive, please join us. This is going to be a treat. He provides tours, and we really want to get on a tour bus with him when we can all get together. But for now, we're going to do a virtual thing. So please, again, February 25th, right here on Zoom.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder, Donna. If you want to get involved with us, please reach out. You can call our ECN resident hotline at 313-364-9423. We have several LEAP committees that you may be interested in, like the Neighborhood Improvement Committee or Climate Advisory, and we can discuss on how to get involved with that. We also have a community needs assessment survey, a good stock marketplace and Brewer Park survey that is forthcoming, and a financial assessment survey that is forthcoming. And we can, when those surveys are ready, make sure that we get it to everyone to just assess what some of the community needs are. And for our resources and reminders, just the update that the city's, the formerly homeowners property tax assistance program has changed its name to the Tax Foreclosure Counseling Network. And the city is still waiting to get out the 2021 property tax assistance applications. And so once those are ready, residents can call our ECN hotline again at 313-364-9423 for assistance with completing those property tax applications. There's also, you'll be able to get information about the Pay As You Stay program, in which you must be approved for the property tax exemption first. You can also call our hotline. You can check that number out in the chat again for the VITA assistance program. It is with income taxes. It provides it provides free income tax filing assistance to residents earning less than $57,000 a year. You can schedule an appointment with ECN by calling 313-556-1920, and Accounting Aid Society will get you all scheduled with us. And then for Wayne Metro Cares, the phone number for that is 313-388-9799. And all of these numbers will be put in the chat as well. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, this is just more information here about the virtual income tax assistance. ECN is a virtual tax site. And we are here to just support you in getting your income taxes filed. The Coalition for Property Tax Justice, I did see this mentioned in the chat earlier. You can call or text 313-438-8698 for assistance with appealing your property tax. And this is for the home value assessment. So when you get the yellow document in the mail that says this is not a bill, it has how much your home is being assessed at. And so we're really encouraging our residents to appeal, especially with the over assessment that has happened. And so again, you can call 313-438-8698 for assistance with getting that appeal completed. Matthew, I'll let you take it away.
Most definitely. Peace, everyone. I know with this very intense conversation, we all need some stress and a little relief. So please join us for Wellness Wednesdays coming tomorrow. We'll be doing this for about a 6-week course. We have a fantastic instructor, Miss Lynette Smith. She comes through, do the thing, puts on the good music, creates a good vibe. Also, we'll be rolling out meditation and yoga playlists as well, so you can be able to practice on your own too. So please join us for Community Wellness Wednesdays. We'll be live on Zoom and as well as Facebook, and that's at 4 p.m. So come and check us out. Also, we are looking to roll out a creative writing workshop. More information on that in the following weeks. So please stay tuned for that. For all our writers, you can get that pen fancy, y'all. And I'm gonna swing it over for our youth department with our college access program.
Thank you, Matthew. The youth department just wanted to make sure everyone knew of a few programs we have going on. We have our college access program that meets every other Tuesday at 7 p.m. We can assist youth with tasks such as completing scholarship applications, completing their FAFSA, reading award letters. So feel free to spread the word about that program. We also have our After the Cap and Gown program. I believe there's a flyer on the next slide. We will, maybe not, but anyway, After the Cap and Gown is meeting every other Thursday. Our next meeting is February 11th, and we will have a speaker from PNC Bank to talk about saving and investing. So please help spread the word about that.
Okay. For more information about ECN, please visit www.ecn-detroit.org or text 55469 and enter the message ECN. You can like us on Facebook at Eastside Community Network and follow us on Instagram at _@ECN_Detroit.
And just to add, please make sure y'all use that tag us on anything. If you're on this call or if you're riding past ECN, if you just want to tag us or use a hashtag just to promote ECN, much appreciated.
All right.
Thank you so much. I do see in the chat that our neighborhood improvement committee meeting is next Tuesday on February 9th at 3:30 to 5 p.m. If you're interested in attending that meeting, I will drop my my email address in the chat, and please email me and we'll get you connected to that committee. And Donna, it is on you for closing remarks.
Oh, thanks everybody. Sorry we went over. I think this was a great conversation. I really do appreciate our public officials joining us and answering all kinds of questions. This will not be the last time that we answer questions, and it does get a little heated sometimes because it's like that. I do want to point out that the one woman who the police illegally removed from her home, actually, it was in the paper. And so we're going to make sure we follow up on that with Councilwoman Sheffield's office and try to see if there's anything that we can do. And we hope that all of that is looked at as we look at our police. Really, that's a police evidence of police misconduct. And so hopefully the Detroit Police Commission will also take a look at what happened there, because that was not correct. So if you want to join us on Authentically Detroit, we'll be here tomorrow. If I don't know if anybody listens to podcasts, but Spotify, Google, if you have an iPhone, Apple has a podcast station, and you can listen to us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Orlando and I do it every week, or just about every week. So this has been a labor of love. And again, this will be our 64th episode. And hopefully soon, 15,000 downloads. We try to bring information to people and also communication authentically, bringing voices from the community. If you have any information you'd like to share, please let us know. And I'm going to let Orlando, who closes us out every week, close us out for real.
Yeah, so if you have information that you want shared on the podcast, or if you're interested in being a guest, email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. That's authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. You can also listen to the podcast on your web browser. Just go to ecn-detroit.org/podcast. We thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for your commitment to Detroit, specifically the east side of Detroit. We want y'all to catch a wave. We will see y'all in the month of April.